Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION The World. I'm Shivan Janna. This is Speed News. Let's start. US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said he takes responsibility for mistakenly adding a journalist to a group chat in which top American officials discussed impending strikes in Yemen. And this as President Trump voiced his support for Waltz even as his administration sought to contain the fallout of the massive security leak. In an interview with Fox News, Mike Waltz said that he does not personally know Jeffrey Goldberg, who is the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, who was added to the chat. US Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has said that the American intelligence community have assessed that Iran is not actively pursuing a nuclear weapon at the moment, but discussion of nuclearization has increased inside the regime in Tehran. Addressing a congressional hearing, she said that Iran's Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003, but mentioned that Iran's enriched uranium stockpile is at its highest level and is unprecedented for a state without nuclear weapons. US President Trump, in his latest executive order, has tightened controls on federal elections, mandating proof of citizenship for voter registration. Those states that fail to comply with the directive could see cuts to their federal election funding. The order has also drawn ire from rights groups, which have vowed to challenge it in court. Trump's actions are part of his ongoing efforts to overhaul the US electoral system, which he claims is biased against him. US Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth has reaffirmed the country's commitment to maintaining a strong presence in the Indo-Pacific region while avoiding conflict with China. During his visit to Marine Corps Air Station in Keno Bay, Hawaii, Hegseth emphasized that US exercises near Taiwan are purely defensive in nature and not a precursor to an attack. US Vice President J.D. Vance has announced that he will lead a high-profile delegation along with his wife to the autonomous Danish territory that US President Trump wants to take over. He said that he will visit the Petrofik Space Base in Greenland to receive a briefing on Arctic security issues and meet with US service members. The announcement comes following criticism from Denmark's Prime Minister over US Second Lady Usha Vance's earlier planned visit to Greenland, stating that the United States is exerting unacceptable pressure on it. Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra has successfully navigated a no-confidence vote in Parliament, fending off accusations from opposition parties that she is merely a puppet of her influential father, Thaksin Shinawatra, a billionaire and former premier. This vote comes after opposition leaders filed a no-confidence motion against the Thai Prime Minister on 24th of March, citing her alleged failure to address pressing issues and prioritize her family's interests over the nation's. Unrest continues in Turkiye as anti-government protests entered the seventh night. Large crowds of people gathered to show their displeasure against the jailing of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu one of the biggest opposition rivals to President Erdogan. The 53-year-old Istanbul mayor was arrested on the 19th of March on corruption charges. He is seen as the main challenger to Erdogan's 22-year rule. His arrest has been widely viewed as politically motivated, sparking protests across the country. Hundreds of Venezuelans took to the streets of the country's capital, Caracas, demanding the release of a group of Venezuelan migrants who were deported from the United States to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. The protesters, including family members and lawyers of the deported men, condemned the U.S. government's decision to send the migrants to El Salvador's notorious terrorism confinement center. Dozens held signs and shouted slogans calling on El Salvadoran President Bukele to send their loved ones home. Yemen's Houthi group claimed to have targeted US warships and an aircraft carrier in the Red Sea as well as military targets in Israel. The group's military spokesman, Yahya Sarria, said in a televised statement that their missile forces, drone air force and naval forces carried out a joint military operation targeting the warships in the Red Sea. According to Sarria, the operation focused on the US aircraft carrier Harry Truman, described as a launching base for aggression against the group. In a separate operation, Sarria said that their drone air force targeted Israeli military targets in Tel Aviv earlier using several drones. He said the attack was carried out as part of the Houthis' ongoing support for the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Representatives from India and China held a high-level meeting in Beijing to review the situation along the LAC. The two nations have agreed on the early resumption of cross-border cooperation and exchanges, including on trans-border rivers and the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. Since October of last year, when Prime Minister Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping met on the sidelines of the BRICS summit in Russia, there have been efforts by both countries to return to the pre-2020 situation along the LAC in order to improve ties. Bangladesh's interim leader Muhammad Yunus said that the country is on track to secure a commercial deal with Starlink in the next 3 months. Yunus, who has led Bangladesh's government since the ouster of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina last year, said the deal would provide a reliable internet service that will not get disrupted by any future political changes. Last year, the ruling party of Bangladesh suspended internet and text messaging services during the riots. The interim government says Starlink's satellite-based technology would reduce the potential for government-imposed disruptions. Spain's leftist government has unveiled a draft bill that would criminalize AI-generated sexual images and videos of a person's face or body without their consent. In a statement, the government has said that the bill is part of a broader effort to protect young people from the dangers of digital technology and ensure their right to privacy. According to reports, the proposed law will mandate smartphone and tablet makers to install free pre-activated parental controls on their devices. The drafted bill will also require online influencers to implement age verification for their audiences. The move comes amid a series of disturbing incidents in Spain where AI was used to generate and distribute fake nude images of underage girls. Instagram is rolling out a new program to fast-track moderation reports made by school districts. Meta's Instagram is introducing a schools partnership program that will enable US school districts to directly report potentially violating posts and accounts. Once enrolled, the school's report will receive automatic priority with regular status updates provided by Instagram. The program requires schools to have an Instagram account, post which the school's account will be provided with a profile banner to indicate that they're an official platform partner. The partnership program will be available to all middle and high schools in the US. Oil prices edged higher on supply concerns, with the US stepping up efforts to limit Venezuelan and Iranian oil exports, while a bigger than expected drop in US crude inventories also lent support. The market also buoyed by American Petroleum Institute data that showed US crude inventories fell by 4.6 million barrels last week, a sign of healthy demand for fuel in the world's largest economy. Analysts polled by Reuters were expecting a decline of 1 million barrels. Official US government data on crude inventories is due on later today. Experts say the upswing in oil prices is a temporary phenomenon, with the potential economic slowdown due to Trump's tariffs keeping a lid on prices again. The dollar took a breather with weak US confidence data and concerns about the effect of sweeping tariffs on US growth, putting the brakes on a recent bounce. The euro and Russia's ruble had no immediate reaction to US deals with Russia and Ukraine to pause attacks at sea and energy targets, though wheat prices fell as the US said it will push to lift sanctions on Russian agriculture. Overnight data showing US consumer confidence plunged to the lowest level in more than 4 years in March. It highlighted how the uncertainty is weighing heavily on households. For the quarter, the dollar index is headed for a roughly 4% drop. Sterling held steady at $1.29 ahead of British inflation data and a budget update due later in the day. Canada has frozen all rebate payments for Tesla and banned the electric vehicle maker from future EV rebate programs. The Star reported earlier this month that Tesla filed an extraordinary number of EV rebate claims in the final days of the program in January, with a single Tesla dealership in Quebec City claiming nearly $20 million in public subsidies by documenting more than 4,000 electric vehicle sales over a single weekend. Toronto stopped providing financial incentives for Tesla vehicles purchased as taxis or ride shares because of trade tensions with the US earlier this month. A US judge abruptly set a June 23rd trial date in the Justice Department's criminal fraud case against Boeing. The lawsuit stems from the plane maker's alleged misrepresentations to US regulators about a key system on the 737 MAX. In July, Boeing agreed to plead guilty to a criminal fraud conspiracy after two fatal 737 MAX crashes and to pay a fine of up to $487.2 million. Boeing's plea deal struck last year included spending $455 million to improve safety and compliance practices over 3 years of court-supervised probation, as well as supervision by an independent monitor for 3 years. Relatives of the victims of the two 737 MAX crashes have also been called. They have called the plea agreement a sweetheart deal that failed to adequately hold Boeing accountable for the deaths of their loved ones. South Korea has launched a massive national response to combat the deadly wildfires which have ravaged the southeastern region. The disaster also claimed at least 18 lives and forced the evacuation of over 27,000 people, with many more affected. The wildfires have destroyed vast areas of land with nearly 43,000 hectares of land burned. Strong winds have fueled the flames, cutting off roads and downing communication lines, causing widespread panic. And the blaze in Uesong destroyed nearly half of more than 30 structures at Gunsa. Among the buildings razed in the wildfire included a 1,300-year-old Buddhist temple that now lies in ruins.